Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here and I'm back with a new Blu-ray video, and on today's episode we are reviewing Teen Wolf and Species. Now I saw Teen Wolf back in, it must have been the early 90s when it was on TV, and I've not seen it since. When I was a kid I absolutely loved this movie. When it was on I had to watch it. I think we did rent it possibly now and again, but I've not seen it since maybe probably 94, 95, and I was worried going back and watching it that I may not like it, or I may find it very cheesy and very dated, because some movies I loved as a kid I find them to be absolutely awful now. For example, another Michael J. Fox film called The Secret of My Success, which stars Helen Slater, and I remember as a kid loving that movie, and it's been shown on TV quite a lot recently, and I watched probably about 45 minutes of it, like halfway into the movie, and I thought it was absolute shit. I thought it was a terrible movie. And there's one moment in the film where they have this kind of montage in the back of some wealthy person's estate, like, all these people in business are kind of there. Michael J. Fox is talking about his new business plan, but you don't actually hear what he's saying. It's all basically a montage of all this cheesy kind of music thrown over it, and it was bad. But anyway, Teen Wolf. Now this new released by Scream Factory. Now this is Region A, so is Species. So you either have to have a multi-regional player or be living in America to play these. So I've had a few people say recently, can these play in a regular UK player? Well, no, and you have to get it modified or hacked via like a remote. This new release comes with a 2.5 hour documentary on the film. Now, I never thought I'd see a documentary on Teen Wolf, maybe a 30-minute retrospective, but not a 2.5 hour making of on this film. Now sadly it doesn't have any interviews with Michael J. Fox. It has interviews with the producers, production designer, editor, the other members of the cast, and the writer. Now the writer himself, I think he's gone to do a lot of DC work, like with animation and stuff like that, possibly Marvel. I'm sure it's DC. And what I didn't know as a kid, that Teen Wolf does borrow a lot from its kind of themes from superhero comics, such as Spider-Man and Superman. So the relationship between Michael J. Fox and his father in the movies very much plays up like Uncle Ben and Peter and Jonathan Kent and Clark Kent. There's even a line about, with great responsibility comes whatever, with great power comes great responsibility, etc. Very, very, very similar play on words, which I thought was very interesting. In terms of how the movie holds up, I mean, it's a very cheap film. It was made for $1 million, and it's presented with a new 2K scan, so it's probably the best it's ever looked. I've not watched the previous kind of Blu-ray release. There is one you can get on Amazon. I've never actually seen it in the shops, but it is available. I'm not sure if the quality is any good. That's handled by 20th Century Fox, and this one I believe it's in the USA it's handled by MGM, and it comes with a mono soundtrack as well, so it's not going to blow you away with sound. I think because of its cheap budget they couldn't afford to have the Dolby stereo license, which were quite pricey. I mean, some films such as even like Conan the Barbarian, released in 1982, didn't come with a Dolby stereo mix. They couldn't afford. They didn't want to pay the prices of encoding it in that format. So also, I mean, if you've got a home cinema setup, you can just like change the sound options to give it a bit more surround sound, as it were. But it will be very artificial. But that's the best you can do with a mono soundtrack. Now, I was saying earlier, I was a bit worried about the film being a bit too cheesy or possibly dated. But I thought the movie still held up well. There is some good moments of humour. The score is pretty interesting as well. It's very cheap music as well, but it kind of works. And there's some good like pop songs in it. And it's all very much confined to this little small town and the school where Michael J. Fox hangs out. And then he very early on he begins to experience things like there's hair growing and like puberty basically, but to the extreme where he's getting very long hairs coming out of like his nipple at one point, then his hands, and he becomes the wolf. There's a great moment in the film where Michael J. Fox is in the bathroom, he's transforming, and then you have that moment where he opens the door and his dad's there and he's like full on werewolf. It looks like a teddy bear, it's this sort of character, like a giant Ewok. So that's a great comedic smash cut to seeing his father. Michael J. Fox is really good in the film. Nothing wrong with his performance, but I think he's kind of not say overshadowed, but I think his friends like Styles really kind of has a lot of the best moments, and really kind of revels in that 80s kind of sidekick mentality, and he's trying to profit off everything that Michael J. Fox does when he becomes the Wolf. Everyone kind of accepts who he is when he becomes the Wolf. I think in reality everyone will be so freaked out by this person who's become essentially a werewolf. But everyone kind of loves him because he becomes this amazing basketball player, because he gets all these powers, essentially like strength and speed and stuff. But it's not played up in any kind of like superhero fashion. He's not saving people. He just basically becomes the cool kid. Before he turned into the Wolf, he was not really the cool guy, and he's trying to get with the hottest girl in school. But his best friend since he was a kid, like Booth, she also loves him dearly. But he's not essentially rude to her, but he's very much treats her as his kind of regular friend. Then he comes to acknowledge her affections. Over the years, Teen Wolf has built up this kind of huge kind of cult following, and there's quite a lot of t-shirts you can buy, and kind of new posters people have done to sort of celebrate their love for Teen Wolf. Now obviously there was a sequel called Teen Wolf 2, which I saw only once. I didn't think it was good at all. I recall as a kid thinking this was a piece of shit, waste of my time, and I've not attempted to revisit that movie again. But going back actually to the documentary, because of its length, it goes over every aspect of this film. And I think the one moment that left a lot of people back confused, all the trivia of this film, was the end shot where you see this person's going to stand up with their trousers unzipped. And everyone always thought it's this bloke with his cock out and stuff, which is entirely not true. Because they do a new 2K scan of it, the people at Screen Factory show you, they basically remove the matte, the black border, go whoop into, so you can see the full frame, and it reveals who it is, and it's not a dude with his trousers on. Well, the flies are undone, but it's not a dude. But if you are a hardcore fan of Teen Wolf, then you already know a lot of the trivia and background information on this film. But is it worth buying? If you are a fan of Teen Wolf, then it's certainly worth buying just for the documentary. It's very informative, and there's loads of information in the film, but it wasn't something I was desperate to know in terms of like the production design of Teen Wolf, and you're like, production design? Was there any? So also there clearly is. Obviously you got the little, just basically, retrofitting an already existing school and changing it to a different school, or changing the names of things, and the locations of where they shoot things, that all kind of plays into the production design of the movie. But it's certain parts of the film where you think, did we really need to know that? But I think for a hardcore fan they will do. But for an average fan, they'll probably be like, I'll skip to the next chapter and listen to, hear about the soundtrack or the editing, who knows. But it obviously comes with a theatrical trailer as well. So for the cost of it, I mean, importing it, if you don't live in the USA, may be a little bit pricey. But if you are a hardcore fan of Teen Wolf, then it's certainly worth getting hold of. An interesting thing is that they shot this movie before Back to the Future. And when it came time to doing the additional pickups for this film, any sort of changes they needed to do, he'd already started work on Back to the Future. So, plus he was working on the TV show, that sort of hit sitcom he was doing at the time. And so he was doing pickups for Teen Wolf, Back to the Future shoots, and the TV show. But I think he was doing Back to the Future at night. So he was working 7 days a week, certainly more, probably around 18 hours a day, maybe slightly more. So he was, a machine. He was working so much. They released this film probably knowing that Back to the Future would do very well. So they released it afterwards to sort of capitalise on the success of Michael J. Fox and that movie. So this film cost them, $1 million and made like 90 million. So that's a huge profit margin. And no wonder they made a sequel. But sadly, that didn't do very well. It probably made its money back, but it probably made nowhere near as much as the first film. But as I said, if you are a hardcore fan of Teen Wolf, then it's certainly worth picking up. And, that cover alone is often worth grabbing hold of it. I'll have to get a theatrical poster of this. Maybe not an original, because that would cost me. May cost me about £80 or more. But a good reprint would be a good option. Now, let's crack on with Species. Now, obviously slipcover and the original. I don't think that's the original theatrical poster, because I always saw it with Natasha Henstridge on the front cover, as kind of the beam of light coming out of her hand and stuff, but not in her alien form. But anyway, well, this one comes with a new 4K scan, and a lot of the extra features are ported over from the previous releases. So if you already own the Blu-ray, the special edition, or maybe the old DVD release, then a lot of the extras on here may not be worth putting the extra cash down to sort of get this new collector's edition. I saw Species back in 1996 when it came out to rent. I think most of the lads were, fell in love with Natasha Henstridge when they first saw her. And I recall quite liking the movie. It was because of its HR Giga design. It kind of, as a teenager, you think, oh, is this in the same universe as Aliens? Well, no, it's clearly not, but it's just got the same creature design thrown in. Very similar creature design. It actually borrows a lot from his books, Giga's books, more so than Alien. Species came out at a time when they started doing more big budget kind of sci-fi movies, and it had the horror element thrown in. And I didn't mind the movie. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I don't ever recall buying it. It was always a friend who had it, who after it came out to rent, then out to buy it. And watching again recently, because I had been tempted to buy it again, like get a Laserdisc for say £5 you see on eBay, because it got released on Laserdisc, during the height of its popularity, the format's popularity, and you can get it so cheap now because they've made so many copies. I thought, well, should I get it again? No, I waited. Then Scream Factory announced this kind of collector's edition. I thought, well, I'll wait for that. And watching it again, I didn't think it was a very good film. I thought it was okay at best. And looking back at a lot of the reviews, actually, critically, it was kind of mediocre. And look at the ratings online, especially these kind of IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes, it's very much a mixed movie. And obviously it has its fans. I think the fans, it comes from either the star Natasha Henstridge or the creature design. I like the idea that this kind of alien has sent out this kind of signal to Earth to sort of say, create this kind of DNA strand to sort of create this creature. And this girl becomes his unwilling host, and then once she escapes and kind of gets older very quickly, she cocoons herself and then comes out this kind of beautiful woman. Goes on this hunt to find this male who she can mate with and then take over the world, essentially, I suppose. See, that idea is fine, but once the movie kind of unfolds and the story starts moving along, you have this team of people who are sent in to investigate and try and track her down and destroy her. It just becomes this very plodding, tracking this person down kind of story, and a lot of time is spent in this either this club or the entrance of this hotel, people them just kind of talking and deciding how they're going to find her, and always playing one step behind. And when the alien, when she tries to mate with people, she encounters one guy, but he's diabetic, so she kills him. She's trying to find the perfect male, nothing wrong, whatever, with them. When you see those kind of transformations when she becomes the alien, which is done very well by the makeups, by the creature effects team and the makeup guys, all that's really good. But it's all kind of leading up to this big finale with the alien, and the final act, the battle, is awful. It's absolute crap. So it came at a time when CGI was now an option for many studios. Effects companies could do it now. They had the funds, they had the systems in place. But it was the decision to choose between CGI or doing something within camera. Now the alien design in this, the creature, has this very kind of transparent kind of skin and stuff, and it's a very complex and complicated design. And trying to get it to work on camera and move a lot is going to be a huge struggle, and showing it on camera too much for long takes, whatever, may reveal its limitations and may make people think it looks a bit fake. So you have the final act where they go into the sewers to track down the alien, who's now given birth to this little boy. Boss Film decided to go with CGI, and when you see it, it is really, really ropey. It doesn't look real. It looks very much artificial. It looks like something from a very early video game cutscene, from the mid-90s. And even when it came out on VHS, seeing it's kind of pan and scan, not widescreen, it looked awful. really bad. And Boss Film didn't last very long after, you know, this whole transition to CGI. I think they closed their doors in like 97, 98. So Boss Film didn't have the successful transition of kind of practical stuff to CG. And you know, just looking at Species, think, oh, they'd pulley one up for the task, or may have been a bit too ambitious of what they were trying to do, and instead should have said, look, let's just try and use more in-camera stuff. But the final battle, if you didn't have CGI for the final battle, and it was still kind of in-camera stuff, it's still a bit of a letdown, really. It wasn't particularly explosive, and you've got this whole middle act of the movie that doesn't really do much. So yeah, it was a bit of a slog to get through. Now with the new stuff, it's obviously, as I said earlier, it brings over a lot of the extra features from the last special editions of the movie, and this one comes with I made some notes here. Now it comes with a new retrospective, a 36-minute documentary, interviews with the director, composer, DP, and the makeup effects guys. So that was very informative. I found it quite enjoyable. Nothing wrong with that at all. But it's, you know, a lot of information they're providing is kind of stuff they've already provided before with the previous stuff. So, but because these are kind of, you could say, slightly vintage featurettes, seeing it all kind of with new eyes, I suppose, with new perspective on things, it gets away with it. And a new interview with Natasha Henstridge called From Seal to Eve. Now this interview is about 20 minutes long, and it came from the Species 2 Blu-ray that was released by Scream Factory, I think last year. They don't actually advertise it on the packaging, but when you play it, the interview, it does say this was from the Species 2. It was a great interview, so we decided to put it on disc, which is great because I don't own Species 2. But if you do own Species 2, you'd be like, oh, I've already seen this. But it's a great interview with her where she talks about her career as a model, then going into acting, and then and she discusses that she still has a lot of respect for the franchise because it did a lot for her career. And she sort of said, you know, when she saw the movie, she hated it. You know, it's one of those things where actors don't like to see themselves, and everyone kind of panicked. But then she kind of, you know, watched it again, and she was happy with what she saw. Now, the director of the movie, Roger Donaldson, you know, I think he's a very good director. He did great work on Dante's Peak. I mean, I don't think anything with the movie's direction is a problem. I think going back to its kind of middle act issues, but with its look of the film, because it's being a new 4K scan, it didn't look like I was watching this kind of new quality version of the film. I mean, it looked nice. The photographic style of the movie and its production design, it kind of falls into that kind of sci-fi movie, sci-fi channel kind of movie look. It doesn't look anywhere near as good as, say, you know, the Alien movies, or, you know, that kind of feature Giga's work. Some of the best stuff actually is when the girl has her little nightmares, and you see kind of these two Giga-like creatures kind of, I presume, like kissing or something underwater. That's kind of all backlit. This like flashing kind of strobe light going on. It looks great. Those little moments are fantastic. But the rest of the movie kind of just doesn't really have an interesting visual style. But I suppose it's trying to sort of show that she's in this kind of very much real world, and if you push anything like to the extreme with kind of contrast or colours and stuff, it thus becomes more farcical or fantastical, I suppose. And it kind of plays with trying to keep things very much grounded, like most horror movies do, not push it. I suppose, like, if you look at things like Hellraiser, you know, things like the first one, you know, where its visual style tries to play very much everything in reality. Now, is it worth buying? Is it worth, you know, importing from America or buying for a slightly inflated price off eBay.co.uk? Well, if you already own the previous versions, then it may not be worth putting the extra money down. But if you don't own Species and you are a fan of the film and the sequels, then go for it. You know, I'd say it's worth it just for the extra content. But I don't. Yeah, as I say, if you're not if you've never seen the film before, then I would probably try and find a way to watch it via, you know, Amazon or Netflix streaming if it's on there, or try rent it beforehand, because, you know, you don't want to put down £20 or more, whatever, for a film you may not like. But I think a lot of people have seen Species, and I think most people do have the sort of similar opinion that it's very much an average film with this kind of, you know, this very attractive woman in and this great kind of creature design thrown in. but it's not something that's ever going to be on the same level as, say, Aliens, whatever, Giga's previous kind of contributions. But yes, so I would recommend Teen Wolf out of the pair, to be honest, because that 2.5 hour documentary, even though it's covers things that I'd probably hadn't intended to see, it does a great job of just making everything get everything we need to know on Teen Wolf. And it's, when you look at other films which are far more popular than Teen Wolf, get no treatment by the studios and stuff, and seeing a kind of very cult movie get something with that much love thrown at it for a documentary, then it's worth kind of putting your money down and adding it to your collection. Right folks, that is the end of the video. Now, I'm not sure what I'm reviewing next. I may cover Future Shock and Psycho 2, the recent releases by Arrow Films. Now, some people have been asking me why I haven't reviewed any Arrow releases recently, or at the beginning of this kind of series of Blu-ray reviews, partly because they haven't released anything of interest to me. They'd been mostly focusing on kind of niche, kind of underground horror movies, and while Scream Factory have a bit more variety with their output, it's not just horror. So, I mean, Arrow do the odd ones. We got Big Trouble in Little China, you got The Thing came out as well. So they do surprise me now and again, but Scream Factories tend to have a more to my liking with their catalogue of films. So I may review Future Shock and Psycho 2. So if you'd like to see them covered in the next episode, leave a comment below. But if I see anything else that comes out that tickles my interest, then I will cover those movies. Okay everyone, take care and goodbye.
If you enjoyed the video, you can find more on my YouTube channel, and also you can follow me on Twitter. If you want to help support the channel, you can donate through Patreon and receive monthly perks such as updates on the latest news on my channel, early access to reviews and commentaries before they go live on YouTube. Even the smallest donation can help keep this channel going. Thank you.